Okay, so my name is Cami Gaylott, and what is your name?
My name is Emily Gibson, and I am the Opportunity Class Teacher here at System School.
What are your current daily roles and responsibilities here?
So I work with students in 3rd through 8th grade who have behavior, academic, and attendance concerns. And this is a space where kids come in and out all day to get help that they need. It's not a special ed program, and so I have a number of students who are on my regular schedule, and they have certain times that come here, or certain times I or one of my TAs, my aides, goes to help them in their classroom. And I go down to the elementary school to help a student a half hour every day. Some days I go into a music class to support a student. So basically we're trying to find out why are kids struggling and what do they need to be successful. And that's what I do.
Okay. What would you say your personal advocacy style is?
My personal advocacy style.
Like research, or are more like personal, find leaders and be like, hey, this is what needs to change?
That's a hard one because it's changed. I mean, I've been teaching since 1992, and so I've always tried to make sure that the kids that I cross paths with, that they are seen and understood, so that we know why and what they need.
So listener isn't one of the advocacy styles. I think being able to listen to what people are saying, what their needs are, and I think that might fit into that, because even if they have different beliefs than you, you're probably still open to listening to what they have to say and hearing what their beliefs are, even if they're different from yours.
Definitely. I mean, listening, and also just, I have the research background. I do research, and I have a doctorate, so that kind of bends me towards that lens. But it's more researching my students and observing them and watching and trying things and just taking the backlog of knowledge I have after so much time in the training and applying it. But I'm always trying to find ways that kids can be successful. That it's not the kids that is wrong, it's what we're, the case that we've created isn't working.
Okay. How often do you work with students with disabilities?
All the time. This isn't a special education program, but most of the kids that I see either have diagnosed learning disabilities, or there's something going on and they haven't been diagnosed yet. And so this becomes, we don't have a special ed class in this district. There are very few of them in this county. And so we have a lot of kids in our general ed program who need more support. They need time, they need breaks, they need different things. And so this room becomes that place too.
What kind of training did you have to go through to work with students with learning disabilities?
So when I first started out, I got a general ed or general education teaching credential. And so you have, I think we had one special education class, which was just basically about how to work with a special education teacher and get information. And really quickly on, in my first couple of years, it was very clear that I had a way of working with students that worked really well with kids who had special needs. And so I had multiple kids put in my classes for their mainstreaming to support them, because what I did worked for them. And then I just kept taking classes on different things. And then one of my biggest ones was when I took a class as an aide, and it was in a program for kids in kindergarten through 3rd grade who had very severe autism. Many of them were nonverbal, really struggling, and I worked there for a year, and the knowledge I gained in that program has been phenomenal because I apply it constantly. There's so many kids who struggle with aspects of autism that, they're fully verbal and everything else, but you can see it, and you're going, oh, okay, you need this, and the same things help them. And so that was one of my favorites, but I've just done, it's always been my focus, and so I just look through that lens, I guess, and I'm always thinking about that.
Would you say that training's probably had the most impact for you?
The
that
one
year?
yeah,
Okay.
because it was a year-long crash course in how do you help, and it was astonishing to me. I had this one kid, so he was a first grader, and it's like we just clicked, and it was so the whole year, I got to see this kid grow and change, and his parents, it was just so amazing to watch that, and I've seen that happen throughout my whole career, but that one was just like, wow, to have really impacted someone positively, it's just the most amazing thing.
Yeah. What is the most valuable thing you have learned and applied to the classroom from any of your trainings?
One of them is it's okay to take a break. That if what you're doing isn't working, I think I told you once before, tap out.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not working with a kid, tap out, because sometimes just a change of person makes whatever that struggle was go away. That most kids are not motivated by getting this task that we want them to do done. And if I want this done, then it needs to be me that figures out how to make it successful for them, not them figure out how they're going to do it.
Okay. What do you feel is the most effective way to advocate for these students with learning disabilities?
That's a hard one because a lot of people who are in general ed classrooms don't have a lot of training and feel very uncomfortable because they don't know what to do.
Okay.
And they don't want to be, they don't want to fail. They don't want to do something wrong. And so we really have to set kids up for success if they're going to be mainstreamed, if they're going to be in general ed classrooms. Teachers have to know, what do I do? What can they do? How do I help them? Because they don't want to do the wrong thing. And so I guess that's one of the most important things I do is helping people know what a student can do and how they can be successful in the classroom.
Just like making sure that the people in the classroom have the knowledge and tools and trainings to be able to do to help the students.
Especially in our district, in our county, because like I said, we don't have, and I work with a number of kids who would be in a mild to moderate special education class and then mainstreaming. And they're not. They're 100% of their day is spent in general education, and they're worn out, those kids. They're tired because it's just, and so much of it is over their heads, and teachers just keep doing what they're doing because they don't know how to modify and how to incorporate that kid into what's happening.
Okay.
Yes.
What are some of your biggest challenges and how do you overcome them?
I think one of the biggest challenges is that we are in an area that doesn't have enough services for kids. So I end up supporting a lot of students who would be getting services in a special education class for part of their day. We have a lot of kids who have medication needs. We have a lot of kids who, we're in a very rural community, a very poor, high poverty rate, and the needs are so much greater than what we can do. And so that can wear you down. And I just keep focusing on, what can I do today? What does this kid need today? Because I can't fix all those other things. And so focusing on, our sphere of influence, we can only control what's in our classroom. So if a kid
can do versus what you can't do.
Yeah. And we have kids who have constant medication issues. I can't fix that. I can talk to the school nurse, I can file a CPS report, I can do all these things, but I can't fix it. In the end, I have this kid who is in my program because they can't cope and they don't have an IEP, they've never been assessed, all these things. And so, what was the question?
Just what are some of your biggest challenges and how do you overcome them? I think you've pretty much hit it on the spot.
So it's just,
there's a lot.
There's greater need than the capacity, and I have a pretty bottomless well of patience, but sometimes when things are happening outside of my room that then make my job harder, and it's like, I know what it's like to be a teacher in a classroom of 25, 30 kids, and so I have great empathy. When you put all of the kids who are struggling into one space, it can be really challenging because they don't have the structure of their classroom that kind of helps contain them sometimes.
What is something you feel that all educators should know when working with students with learning disabilities?
That every single kid is pretty awesome and they have an amazing character and humor and interests and needs, and if you listen and talk to them and play with them and do things with them, then when you need them to step up and try something, they're there with you. So just getting to know them as people and understand them, that they're not someone, sometimes it's the curriculum versus, the development of the human being. And if we're focused on getting this, do this page, get this done, and it's just getting things done versus, the learning, and the value of that. And I think that you want to focus on the human being more than getting this page done, because once you see them as a human being and they see you, you have a much easier time getting them to do the hard work of teaching and learning, because it's really hard.
Yeah. How do you use data when making decisions to accommodate each student's individual learning needs?
So because most of what I do is behavior, the academic portion is a vehicle for getting to behavior, if that makes sense. So it's like I'm more concerned about the behavior. I'm more concerned about the student who is crying and whining and all this. They're incredibly capable, and there's all this stuff that's in the way, right? So I'm not concerned about the math paper because I know they can do it, and I know they'll catch up once they're on board. It's that behavior piece, and so I collect a lot of data on behavior.
Okay.
And I have all kinds of different systems. Like when I'm working with another teacher, I'll create a Google form that they fill out every day, like a rating scale. Or, I have paper pencil ones. You've seen the visual schedules that I create, so that, there's this visual schedule so the student can become, owning their schedule instead of being a passive, tell me what to do. And so, unfortunately, we don't have an assessment system in this district for behavior. We have our math and our language arts assessments, and we do those 3 times a year, but we don't do anything for behavior, and we should, because that is the biggest barrier for students learning is their behavior, and that's become more and more the case in the 35 years I've been doing this. We have to assess it so that we know what we're looking at.
Okay. So let me see. How do you assess and evaluate when a student needs additional support due to a learning disability?
So I'm not a special ed teacher. So I am someone who is like in on student study team meetings, which is where we have a meeting and all the different adults who work with that student come together, and the parents, and we talk about what the issues are, what their strengths are, what our concerns are, and then we put in place some interventions. For example, coming here for a break, an earned break is an intervention that might, or coming here to do independent work, or different kinds of interventions, and things the teachers are going to do and things the parents are going to do, and we try those, and if those don't work or we're not seeing the results that we hoped for, then we either revise those interventions, or we might move forward to do some assessment. If a student already comes to us with, say, a diagnosis of ADHD and medications, then we might want to put in place a 504, because they have to have their medications, and if they don't, they're not able to learn.
Okay.
So my role is a support role in trying out interventions and throwing out ideas of what we might want to try. But I don't actually do assessments or IEPs or any of that.
So here is a question more focused on like advice you could possibly give to me. So as a future teacher, do you have any advice on how I can personally create a more equitable classroom for students with learning disabilities to be able to keep them more in the classroom?
Yeah. The number one thing is just to own what it is you're trying to do, because there's a reason you get into teaching, and usually it's a hard reason. If you're in high school or middle school, sometimes it's more the academic reason, like you love language arts or you love math. But if you're going to get into special education or you're going to be in elementary school, it's about, really, really appreciating and caring about kids and wanting them to develop as much as they can. And if you find yourself being focused in on, oh, we've got to get this done, we got to get this done, we got to get this done, take a deep breath and step back. Why are you here? And I'm here because I absolutely love working with kids. And I can say that after all these years I've been in this, I really love working with kids and seeing them, take a deep breath and seeing them get excited about something and seeing it click for them and seeing them make success and knowing they would not be doing that if I wasn't here. This is really cool. It's like, how many jobs can you have where you can say that, where it's just like so concrete, seeing the impact of you? And some people say when you're a teacher, you never get to see, and you do, especially if you're working with kids with special needs, you get to see it. Okay. And oftentimes they don't have anybody who's really seeing them. They see the disability, they see, these other things, but they don't see who that kid is. And get to appreciate them and help them appreciate themselves and be seen as not just somebody who has ADHD or who has autism, but a human being, who has all these things. And I would encourage you, one of the things that we did in our teaching program way, way, way back when is we had to write our classroom management plan, just write this whole plan. And I can go back, I pull that out and look at it, it's still true. Who I am at my core as a teacher is still that. And yeah, just know yourself and know why you're doing this, and be always willing to just kind of take a step back, because our job pulls us in all these directions, and you'll hear about the pendulum swing, this way and that way, and you're in the middle. This is why I'm doing this, and you get to be that filter, and sometimes you're asked to do things that don't honor why you're going into teaching, and hopefully work for somebody who you can talk to about that. And if you're going to work in this county, you don't have a lot of choices, but I always told people, and someone told me when I was starting out, don't just take the first job that's offered to you and stay there forever. Because if where you go isn't aligned with your vision and what's important to you, you're not going to change that place. It's going to change you. And so be sure, it's like, I finally found the place that I've been looking for my whole career at this time in my life. And I've only had 2 places, and I've been in a lot of different schools, that it was like, oh, this is such a good fit. This is awesome. And I would want everyone to have that.
I appreciate all of that. Last question. In what ways can I work with the school to help advocate for students with learning disabilities for my advocacy project? So like, how can I help these students, and how can I be an advocate for them?
So one of them is, in your role as a teaching assistant, or in your role as a new teacher? What is it you're asking about?
For now, as my role as a teacher assistant.
So I would say asking a lot of questions of me, of the resource teacher, and just saying, hey, I'm working with so-and-so and I'm struggling with this, and get some ideas. And also taking the time to observe. Like if you're in here and I'm working with one of the students you work with a lot, taking the time, you observing is way more important than anything on that to-do list for TAs.
Okay.
Right? Observing is one of your best resources. Watching kids out on the playground, because you often see a different side of them out there than you see in here. And then just asking questions and observing. I think that's the most important thing. And if you're seeing, like in your observations in a classroom setting, and you're seeing, gosh, this is really hard for this kid, and it's at the same time every day, you have an opportunity to make some connections, collect your own, observational data, and then be able to say, I'm noticing this is happening a lot, and say that to me, and then I can, see where we want to go with it. But if a kid is struggling at a certain time in the day or a certain subject, that's something for us to figure out.
Okay.
Right? It's not for them to just keep muddling along. It's a kid.
Yeah.
It's for us to go, gosh, silent reading after lunch is horrible for this kid. They're blowing out every time. Why? And that curiosity is huge.
Okay. Thank you. All right. That is everything. Thank you so much for doing this interview with me.
You're so welcome.